Good morning and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be going over a noob's guide to WorthIt setup. Now just stick around and enjoy the video. Now I've had a few questions on the Discord, well quite a lot of questions on the Discord. How do I set up and configure WorthIt? Now obviously there is a PDF guide on how to actually set up WorthIt if you really wanted to, and also the old guide is a little bit outdated. Now I am planning to doing a full-fledged ultimate guide towards WorthIt, but that's at when we bring out the next update, which is going to be a big one, by the way. So this is a noob's guide to the WorthIt setup and configuration. A few of you say that it's very user-friendly, and I very much appreciate you guys saying that, because a lot of time and effort has gone into creating WorthIt to where it is at this moment in time. So also, to the other people that are actually struggling at the moment, this is a guide for you. Now that being the case, let's actually go into our WorthIt. So we've actually set up WorthIt, we've got the mini-map button, which we can then pull up. Now, that being the case, we have WorthIt on here, which displays all of the current content farms that you actually have. Now, what you're going to be wanting to do is we're going to go over to dashboard. We're going to go down to the drop down menu. Now, the other things of note is obviously you've got your farms for mining and herbalism and all that stuff, and loads of other stuff. There is raw gold, but that one is not released to the public just yet. The next things of note that I must say is disenchanting, flip with the flipping module, and there's transmog. Now, the things of note that we're actually going to be covering is the configuration tab, which is right at the bottom of the drop down menu. When you go into configuration, it will ask you in the base group for this is WorthIt. Now this will ask you what is your pricing source for WorthIt. Now obviously WorthIt takes the averages of what you get for items per hour, and then evaluates that using your server's prices, giving you a gold per hour for your server specifically. Now that being the case, you can pick things from anywhere from DB min buyout, DB market, DB historical, region min buyout average, the region market value average, the region historical, and the region sale average. So you have a few pricing sources that you want to go with. Now, when you're actually starting off, it will actually come up and say DB market. But other than that, I usually put it at DB min buyout because that is what it's actually selling at this moment in time. Now, obviously you can go with DB market, which will tell you the average over the last 7 days, which would give you a bit more of a cleaner idea on what's actually going about. But for me personally, my pricing metric is DB min buyout. But if you want to just get a basic understanding of WorthIt, I would just go with the basic DB market. Now that being the case, it will actually ask you for two pricing sources for two different things, which is your current content price source, which I usually put at DB min buyout because that is your current content. That means that it is only the BFA farms will be valued at the DB min buyout, and the actual price of it at this moment in time. So if Zinanthid is 10 gold, it will value it at 10 gold. But if the DB market is at 14 gold, it won't do that unless you say DB market for the current content. Now, with legacy content for pricing sources, you can obviously pick whatever pricing source you want to go with. My recommended is DB market, and legacy is anything that is not the current expansion. So that means that anything from vanilla all the way up to Legion is going to be valued at the DB market, because that is old world content, which we call legacy content price source. Now, that being the case, you can go with the DB market as that won't fluctuate all that much. This is what I would use for the basic setup, is current content at DB min buyout and the legacy content price source at DB market. Obviously, you are more than welcome to change it as you well wish to suit yourself. Now, that being the case, we are going to skip over the recorder because that is a video in and of itself, and we're actually going to go down to our bag value. Now, the bag value will actually value things in your bag based upon whatever you have in your bags. So going back to actually WorthIt, anything current content is going to be valued at the DB min buyout, and anything old world content is going to be valued at DB market. So when you go into your actual bag value, just bear that in mind for when you set that up. The next thing of note is when you're actually setting up your bag value button, that actually is going to value it. You can then set the minimum item value. So when you're actually doing a farm, you don't want things to be valued if it is lower than 10 gold. So if it's lower than 10 gold, it won't actually do anything and it won't value it. Obviously, I have Tide Spray Linen in my bags and that is less than 10 gold. But if I actually put it at 2 gold, or in the actual bag value, it will actually value the Tide Spray Linen. So that is the minimum item value. So if it is valued at either 1 gold or less, or 0.5, we can still actually do that and it will still value it. So anything worth 50 silver, it won't actually do. So bear that one in mind. I usually leave this at a basic setup of minimum item value, just leave it at 0, unless you want to be super nitpicky for when you're doing your farming. Now, for minimum quality, it comes already as a default in common. So anything that is poor quality, so grey, any grey items will not be included in the inventory value. And anything above common, from anything from between common to legendary, will actually be valued in your bags. So you can skip over all of the stuff that you've been farming for an entire hour. Say you did a load of transmog farming, you can set this up for if you wanted to just value things that are common all the way up to legendary without actually having to vendor your entire bags. You can just vendor it as such and it will do that along with that. So that being the case, if you really wanted to do transmog farming, you can just set that to uncommon and then it will value only the transmog items you actually have. But for me, when I'm farming materials, I would want to set this to common, as I want to have as I obviously want that to be valued inside that, as Tide Spray Linen for me is obviously white, which is common. So the next thing of note after the minimum quality is the under threshold, which is anything under the threshold to actually get valued. It comes by default as none, and you have other things that you can actually do. So we can also set this to vendor. This will actually value anything in your bags for vendoring. So if we take that off and put that back to none, it says 1142. That's valuing the Tide Spray Linen from the min quality. When we go to vendor, it actually says 1327. That's because it actually is taking note of the expulsum that's in my bag, which is 185 gold if I vendored it right now. That means it's actually going to take the vendor value for anything else in our bags as well, under that under the minimum quality and the min item value threshold, so it knows that we're going to vendor all of those grey items. So if you set that to actually common and you still have a load of poor items in your bag, it will actually calculate, if you set that to vendor, it will tell you how much it's actually going to be vendored at. This can actually be used for actually raw gold farming as well. So if you set it to legendary, you could and you're basically vendoring everything in your bags, it will actually tell you how much it's actually going to be vendored for when it comes to that. Now this is the last one for the under threshold. Anything that is under the threshold for your bag value button, we can actually say destroying / vendoring. So destroying greater than vendoring. This will actually cross-reference anything in your bags, and it will actually just say, is it better that I destroy this, i.e. milling or disenchanting or even prospecting the material, as aside from just vendoring the items that are under the threshold. So if you have a load of greens from farming up that is under the threshold that you want for your farm, it's going to tell you how much it's going to be if you actually destroyed it, as opposed to vendoring it, and tell you the value that you're actually going to get from actually disenchanting all those items or milling all those items overall. So that one is something that some of you guys may want to actually look into. Now, aside from that, once that's actually done, we're just going to get into our last bit, which is modules. And this is going to be the one that you're going to be wanting to do. There is a little plus button here. Obviously, if you click on modules, it will say nothing to see here, move along. Yeah, basically all you have to do is just press the plus button and it will open up the dashboard, and it will say dashboard can list farms for current content or selected farms from different expansions, and will actually have a checkbox say show current content farms. This is here by default, so when you actually go into your dashboard, it will only show current content farms when you're in your configuration. So when you're in once this is checked, it will only show BFA farms because that's the current expansion that we're in. Obviously, when we move into Shadowlands, the current content will be the Shadowlands farms, and BFA will be subsequently in the other ones. So the only way to access these is uncheck this, and it will actually make it so you can actually show different things that you want for your dashboard. So I could go into my farms, which is something that we'll be getting into in another video, and that is your own recorded farms for WorthIt. So I could obviously grab the 3-hour Whiptail farm, just check it, and then I want to actually monitor, we could say, the Xenanthid farm in Battle for Azeroth, and then we could go into every other expansion. We want to monitor the Primal Air, most performance, and we want to monitor the Missa Pandaria, the Spirits of Harmony farm, as well as, I don't know, Devilosaur Leather. We'll go with that. And then once they're all checked, all we have to do is just go to dashboard, and it will only display your My Farms in here with the drop down menu for it. So then when you actually close down WorthIt and open it back up, it will only show the ones that you have selected. So these can be farms that you want to actually monitor on a daily basis, and it will actually value it at the highest at the top and the lowest at the bottom. Obviously you can flip that upside down if you wanted to by just pressing the gold per hour. Aside from all of that, I'm just going to go back to current content farms because I prefer the default in this, which just shows me all of the current content farms that I can actually do and how much gold I can actually get. But if you wanted to change that, that is pretty much all you have to do for WorthIt configuration setup. So now you guys have a basic understanding on how to set up your dashboard, your bag value, and how the pricing sources actually work. Now, aside from that, guys, that is pretty much the video. Have an awesome rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be tomorrow.